All right, it's COMP123, and it's week 9, lesson 9, part 3. We did a couple parts yesterday, and today being Wednesday, 8:30 in the morning, we have some people struggling to open their eyes, right? But we're going to be talking about UI mainly today. One thing to mention about your assignment 5, I don't really care where your files are. I kind of put together that file thing yesterday and talked about files because just to know that you need to understand your pathing. Right? If you don't mention a path when you load your file up, it'll put it in the debug folder, right? So let's look at that for a second. I'm just going to go back into yesterday's assignment, or yesterday's lesson. And again, if you don't state anything, then what it'll do is there is a, if you look at hidden files and folders, let's go back and do that again. Yeah, let's open this up here. If you look at, this is collapse all, but if I look at here, if I see show all files, you see that there's a bin folder in your resources, right? Well, inside the bin folder, of course, is a debug folder where you're actually going to have your release, and inside there, you have your executable as well as your test file.txt. And to me, I'm good with that. Like, it doesn't matter to me. As long as it's inside your project at the end of the day, that's all that matters to me. Right? So as long as it works and you're able to pull data and obviously what you want to do is put a file in here, construct a file that's in here for your assignment 5. So I'm not asking you to write to it. You just have to make it, right? And as long as you make the file and you can read from it, we're good to go. Okay? That easy. I don't want to make it so that we're not doing a complicated, file reading and writing exercise here. And the reason for that is we're going to cover files again in part 3, right? So in programming 3. So there's no reason for me to go over too crazy. Just want to scratch the surface. Might have a little bit of file stuff on the exam, but very little. Again, it'll be just the same as this. I'm not going to make it so complex because obviously we don't have time. Okay, so that's all I care about for assignment 5. But again, just the reason why we brought this absolute path, and thank you again for that. Again, if you look at the documentation, get current directory tells us where our application directory is, and it'll direct us right in here, right into the bin debug folder. That's where it'll take us. And the reason for that is because that's where, when we compile our code, that's where our executable goes. That's this .exe. And that's why this directory points to that. And of course, all you need to do is you need to do the parent and the parent of the parent. That's what we're doing here. Right, and get the full path, the full name of the parent of the parent. Parent of the debug folder is bin, and the parent of the bin folder is our main project folder, and that's what this thing is doing. Right? Now, is it absolutely correct the way this works from an absolute pathing perspective? We don't want to fool with paths too much here, because again, when we're working on a larger application, we use different methodology to create pathing. So leave it alone for now. I'm not asking you to remember this. I brought it up yesterday so you know it. So you understand the difference between relative path and absolute path. But I don't expect you to remember it, use it, nothing. All right? All I want you to do is just keep in mind that this bin folder is where we keep all our stuff. Otherwise, you'll be like, where do I put my files? It's not reading my file. Well, it won't read your file unless it's in the bin folder, right, in the debug. Okay. That's enough of this one. One thing that I think we want to do with this new solution we're going to make, and I'm just going to pull up one little thing. Before we get right into UI, I'm going to kind of put together a new project really quickly. And I'm going to make it a console application for the last time. So we'll make it COMP123 lesson 9, part 2. And here it is, right? Really, really big. And I'm just going to put this on GitHub just for tracking purposes, not because I expect you to. Let's see, first of all, does GitHub work today? And here's my new 123 lesson 9, part 2. And I'm just going to grab this file here and do a really quick repository. And again, we should be getting good at this now. You've seen me do it like a million times. So I'm just going to put this together. And then, I mean, again, these are the basics. I'm using Visual Studio for all this. You certainly can use command line to do some of this as well. We haven't talked about that too much, but it is possible. Okay, so now we've kind of got our Visual Studio project. And you know what? I want to make a menu for myself. Hey, I want to make a menu really, really quickly. So what do? I come out of the main, right? And you know what? I want to make a menu, so I type the word menu and double tap, and all of a sudden, bam! I got all my code. How the hell did I do that? Yeah, yeah. You want to see that again? Here, watch. What, menu? Watch. Of course not. Of course it won't work for you. We'll talk about how I made it work. Here's my menu. Bam! I got all my utility methods, and I got my wait for key, and everything else. And all I have to do now is I got to go in here. I got to type in the word menu, main menu. Hold on. I'll tell you how I did it in a second. And here's wait for key, right? If I want to wait for my key, but I don't need to wait for key. Wait for key is called by the menu. So if I run this thing right now, the way it is, right? I get a little menu, right? 2 seconds. That took me about all of 2 seconds to do. How the hell did I do that anyway? Well, I'm using code snippets, right? We talked about code snippets yesterday, a little bit, and I'm just going to go, delete, undo. I'm just undoing here, and then I'm going to go back to the way the original state of the program is. If you notice, just a menu word there, right? And if you notice here, when I start typing menu, it kind of brings up menu in this like little white thing that says, this snippet creates a menu method for console applications. Press tab twice to insert snippet, right? Because there's all the snippets that are out there are like that. Remember, I did this yesterday. I went CW, and then went tab, and all of a sudden I go console right line, right? Okay, come on. That is like lots of time saving right there, right? Well, you can do that for everything, right? If I go in here and I go like this, if I say, as an example, for tab, right? Let's keep trying different things. Like, for example, switch, tab, right? How about other ones? For each, tab, right? I can keep doing it and over again. And the thing is, a lot of these things are built in. So how do we find all these shortcuts? Which, by the way, we should all know how to use. If you go to Tools, Code Snippets Manager, right? And inside Code Snippets Manager, you have Visual C#. There's different languages you can choose, right? And there's code snippets for all different languages. But let's just choose C#. And underneath there, if I want to go to Visual C#, I can look at a bunch of different common ones. Like, for example, class. Here's class. So if I actually put the word class in and do a double tap on tab, right? It'll actually put the class out. Do, else, all the common ones. Enum, for each, indexer, all this other stuff. Namespace, blah, blah, blah. And try, switch, a lot of things, right? Now, but how the hell did I get that menu going, right? Because that's mine. How did I put my menu in there? Well, I made my own, right? How the hell do you make your own one? Your own, code snippet. This is cool, right? So here's my code snippets. I got a couple of them that I made. I made menu and wait for key, right? So if I want to do wait for key, and I want to do this over and over again for us, right? If I go wait for key, right, or key, and I go double tap, and then boom, I got my utility method, right? That I can write, and it writes everything for me, right? So it saves a lot of time, right? So how do I do that? Well, if you look at the MSDN documentation, right? So I say, create code snippet for C# or C#, right? 2013. I got to put that in there too. Here's a walkthrough. I'm going to take this walkthrough of creating a code snippet. Right here, it's for Visual Studio 2013. So it's msdn.microsoft.com/en-us library, and this ms165394.aspx link, right? But you can find that how I just found it. And if you notice, there's a snippet template, right? So, we can create our own snippets this way. All I've done is I've taken this snippet template, I've created an XML document, and then from there, I have to state what type of language I'm hitting. So my language obviously is going to be C#. I can make it for VB or other languages too. And in between this C data tag, I can put all my code, right? So that's the first thing. I need to get the snippet going, right? So if I was going to create my code, so let's make a little snippet for ourselves, right? So I'm going to make my own little pieces of code. So let's say I want to do a couple of lines of like, something that's, fairly useful. Let's say, for example, read key, right? I don't have a read key code, RK, read key, right? And so if I double tap read key, I want it to come up with, read key instead of random, right? Instead of like, so console.readKey, maybe it would be a CR. Well, there is no CR, console.readKey, right? So I want to make my console.readKey thing. How do I do that, right? Well, first of all, I need to follow my requirements here. So I'm going to create a new XML document in here. And how do I do that? I'm going to right click, I'm going to go add, and then I'm going to go new item. And inside here, I'm going to choose down on the bottom here, there's going to be an XML document somewhere that I'm going to choose. So here's my XML file. I don't have to do it this way, but certainly, and I want to name this thing something that's related to what I'm doing. So on the bottom of my name should be something to do with my snippet. So for example, read key, I'll call it read key, right? And here's my read key. Okay, now I've got my XML document, and I'm going to rename this thing, the back end of this thing, instead of XML, it's got to be named snippet, right? And I say yes. And when I do that, if you notice, it takes on a different icon, right? The icon looks a little different now that I've called it snippet. So I need this part. This is my XML header. And if I go back to my document here, here's my document, right? Up on online here on MSDN. I'm going to take this whole thing, copy it, right? Go back to my file. So I'm going to write over this thing. Oops. Right over this thing. And there is my snippet. Probably want to change this instead of 2005 or whatever it is. I changed it to 2013 yesterday. It didn't really make a difference. My title should be something to do with the snippet I'm making. So I'm going to create something called read key, right? So console, right? Console read key. That's what I want to make. That's what my title is going to be. My language, you got to be careful here when you do this. VB is typically for Visual Basic, but here I want to do C# with capitals, capital C, capital S, right? And in between these two areas here, right, is where my code is going to go. Okay, this is cool. I'm still not quite finished yet. Let's go back to the MSDN documentation here. So it says to create a snippet, blah, blah, blah. I got to choose my language, and I got to go down. And there's some other options for headers. For example, I've got an author, a title, an author, and description. I like putting those in so we know what they are. So I'm going to kind of take those. And also a shortcut. I should probably mention what the shortcut is too, because I got to put those in the header. So I'm going to take all this stuff out. I'm going to go back. I'm going to save this. You're going to see it online in a second. Right? So I'm going to, instead of here, I want to put it underneath this in the header. So I'm going to kind of add those in. So my author is going to be me, right? Because I'm the one that's creating it. My description is, a console, again, I'm going to do a console dot read key shortcut, right? And of course, my shortcut is going to be console read key, so CR. That's going to be my read key, my console shortcut, right? Okay, so I've got part of this going on. Again, I'm just creating an XML document to make this happen, all right? And when I do that, when I put all this stuff through, let me go back to my program.cs file. I got to really check this out to make sure it works, right? So I'm going to go console here, right, dot read key, because I want to put that in. Here's my read key. It has to look like this exactly. So this piece of code here, console read key, I'm going to go back to my read key snippet and put it in between my C data, between the square bracket after where it says C data and between the other two square brackets, just in here, right? Console read key. And if you notice, it's kind of grayed out because that's all that's going to appear when I use my shortcut. Okay, so I'm just going to put that all in there. Like all this work just for this, right? You might say. Okay, cool, cool. I got my snippets and all that kind of stuff. I got my console.readKey shortcut. That's what it says. I got my CR. That's what my shortcut is. Let's see if Microsoft tells us to put anything else. Add a reference. I can put an assembly reference. I can add. I can import namespaces like using statements. I can do all kinds of other stuff that really right now don't need to do. So let's leave it the way it is. I'm going to kill this. So again, how I found this thing was, again, if I go back, I searched for create code snippet, create code snippet, C# 2013, and I took the second link, which is walkthrough creating a code snippet, MSDN Microsoft. That's how I did it, okay? To find that file for you guys. But I'm going to put it up online in a second anyway. Okay, so I made this code snippet. I saved it. That's cool, cool. Well, now I got to really import it. I can't use this thing, right, this code snippet, unless I import my readkey.code snippet here, this readkey snippet right here. I got to import that somehow into my snippets. Well, I got to do it through Snippet Manager. So I got to go Tools. I go Code Snippets Manager. And if you notice, there's an absolute path here. You got to watch what this is because it's important. And I'm going to go, if I go import, right? I have to actually swim through my folder to find where I have my code snippet. And right now it's inside my main working directory where I have my lesson for today, which is 123, part 2, lesson 9, part 2. Here it is. And inside the folder, I've got my read key snippet. I'm going to take it, and I'm going to click Open. And when I do that, it's going to bring me to this menu here. And this is where some of you may have issues importing your snippet if you try doing this. Sometimes it'll say, you don't have permissions to do that, right? And the reason why you don't have permissions to do that is because if you look at the code snippets folder inside your code, you don't have a code snippets folder for C#, and you have to create that. And that's all I did. And I'll show you that in a second. So then what you do is you go, Finish. And when that's done, now my code snippets, I have 3 of them. I have a console read key. And if you notice, it says my shortcut is CR. My menu, which is that big long menu that I made. And my wait for key, which is just that wait for key method. And press OK. Okay, now that I've got it in my code snippets, I just have to go CR -- and then I go console.readkey. Right? So bang, bang, and then I can do that 2 letters. It's done, right? Console write line, bang, bang, right? I can do those kind of things. And all of a sudden, instead of typing all these extra words, 2-letter code, tab, and you're good to go. Right? So an interesting thing to do, let me just show you where this code snippet stuff is. For me, it exists, and probably for you too. It exists into my Documents folder. And if I go down under my Documents folder, I have a Visual Studio 2013. And under there, in the main Visual Studio 2013 folder that stores all your documents, I have code snippets. And inside there, this Visual C# folder did not exist. Right? This Visual C# folder. I had to make it. And that's what caused the block when I couldn't. It said you don't have access. So I had to create this. And inside my Visual C# folder, I had to create my code snippets. This little file. And by the way I got to figure that out is if you look at Visual Basic, it says my code snippets. Visual Basic was there. So I just copied the same format for that. Went into Visual C#. Then inside my code snippets, well, there they are. My 3 code snippets that I have, right? So this is where they live physically on the system, right? And again, it's in Documents, My Documents, Visual Studio 2013, Code Snippets, Visual C#, My Code Snippets, that's the path. And then there they are. And they're all just XML documents with a .snippet ending extension. That's all they are. So I would, if you're interested in doing that, you can take a look at the documentation. If you're not an adventurer and you just want to use the built-in code snippets that are there, again, if you want to learn what they are, Tools. And again, this is for every language the C# supports that has code snippets. Tools, Code Snippet Manager, and inside there we have some shortcuts. If I go Visual C#, these are all the shortcuts that have been created for Visual C# right now. Okay, lots and lots of them. And you can see the shortcuts. If I go to trying to find one, for example, for class, they're usually just the first word, class, right? And if I do tab, then I can create my shortcuts. So let's try that out. So I'm going to make a new class, right? And I go class, tab, and then I have my class, right? It starts creating my stuff. And some code snippets give you more stuff than others, right? Like, for example, if I want to do, if I start typing, property, right? Prop, tab, I got a property. That's really useful, right? That's like 2 seconds to create a property, right? Let's go do some other ones. If I keep typing prop, there's prop A, and if you look at it, it says define and attach dependency property. Here's another one. define a dependency property, prop full, right? Code snippet for property and backing field. All right, let's try that one. So tab, right? And then we have all this extra stuff, right? Here's my field and here's my property. 2 seconds. Lots quick stuff, you know, that you can take care of, right? To me, right? This is like, you know, I'm not saying it's the be all and end all, but it definitely makes things easier, eh? So that's why I'm bringing it up. I'm bringing it up because you want to be able to maximize your time, right? And you want to, a part of rapid application development that C# allows you to do, we use C# for that. So I'm just going to save this shell of an application up on GitHub. And the only reason I'm putting it up there so you can see this readkey.snippet file that I'm going to put up there. So you can understand how I did that. And I'm going to use my menu again. So I'm going to do my menu, tab. There's my menu, just in case you want to see it. And then again, I can just put my main menu in here in my main. Let's type main menu. So with a couple keystrokes, and if I run this thing, I'm good to go, right? That's what I want to show you. So it takes me 2 seconds to create a menu that would normally take us like 10 minutes, right? Saving time. So in the exam, I might give you a couple of snippets, you know, to use. I don't know. See how it goes. Maybe you'll create your own if you're smart. Okay, let me just update this. Maybe you won't need them. I'll say created read key snippet. And commit. And unsync commits and sync. Okay, cool. That's it for this one. And what we'll do is we'll go back here and stop recording and we'll go into the UI stuff.